You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We have quite a bit of news that never seems to stop. First and foremost, the Democrats from Washington to various localities around the country are all aboard the Victimhood Express. Every single political statement, every single media interview, every single policy proposal, press statement, and awful, cringy TikTok video is all about how sad and poor and downtrodden the Democrat officials are. First and foremost, an update on the California commercial driver's license story. We reported a couple of days ago that the semi-driver in the most recent CDL-related incident involving an illegal immigrant from India, a Mr. Singh, he plowed his semi at full speed through several stopped vehicles, and he ended up killing 3 and injuring 3 more. California officials initially tried to obscure his identity. They tried to hide that. Of course, there were individuals on the social media investigatory sphere who made sure that that was released, that the information of the individual. He is yet another one of the California Give CDLs, give commercial driver's licenses to everybody campaign. Doesn't matter if they're legal, doesn't matter if they're illegal, doesn't matter if they read English, doesn't matter if they can read road signs, doesn't matter if they're driving down the wrong side of I-95, doesn't matter. There are numerous instances now of individuals who immigrate to this country primarily either from Central America, who are often Hispanic and don't speak English, or those who emigrate from India or surrounding regions and don't speak English and then cause accidents on the roads. So CBS covered this, and wouldn't you know it, when CBS made the decision to cover this, they decided to talk not about the growing problem of those who immigrate to this country and don't speak the language. Instead, it's, there's a lot of anti-Sikh sentiment. Sikhism, essentially a kind of an Indian blend, an offshoot of Islam, that I have known a couple of Sikhs in my life, but because there was a Sikh symbol hanging down from the semi-truck window, I think the windshield, of this latest individual, this Mr. Singh in the accident, CBS is reporting that now this is resulting in anti-Sikh sentiment. Here's the news crew over on CBS.
Anti-Sikh rhetoric spiked, but legally working Sikh drivers say they're just safely doing their jobs.
Your reporter Madison Keevy is live for us with answers from a Sikh community leader on the growing threats and harassment he fears may force good drivers to just quit. Right, Madison?
Right, Marley. Sikh truck drivers across the state of California are on high alert. They're the backbone of this industry.
It's always the backbone. I'm so sorry. This always just floors me. It's never, these are people who immigrate and assimilate, and they have become part of the truck driving community. The American truck driving community used to be a bedrock, a foundation stone of American industry. And there were white drivers and black drivers and Hispanic drivers and Indian drivers and Chinese drivers. There were all of these various groups around the world that came to the United States. They emigrated legally. They learned the language. They knew the road signs. Standards were stricter at that time. And there wasn't all of this beautiful levels and layers of insurance to get you out of anything. And by the way, there were no prosecutors back then who would let you off the hook because, you've had it really hard crossing the border illegally and lying to immigration agent. There was none of that. In fact, it is such a deep part of American, I'd say modern 20th century folklore, that not just the Smokey and the Bandit series, there are numerous series, songs, TV shows that have idolized the American trucker. Some of the best diners that have ever existed come out of the necessity of feeding truck drivers. And now, how does CBS how do they contextualize this? Well, Sikh drivers, the backbone of the American trucking industry, now the target of such hate. When have you heard this before? Oh, yes, it was anti-Hispanic rhetoric. Remember that they're the backbone of the American farming industry. And, oh, we could never figure out anything related to crops without Hispanic people. Oh, no. Again, pretending that all Indian people are good for is truck driving. That's wrong. Or Sikh religious people are good for truck driving. Pretending all Hispanic people are good for is crop picking. And then, of course, you'll remember the last time they did this crap when it was alleged at the time, because we didn't have the definitive proof because the intelligence agencies didn't release it yet, but anyone with a brain could tell you that the COVID-19 virus came out of the biolaboratory in Wuhan, China. And Trump, what did he do? He said, I call it the China virus because it's from China. And what did the media come out there and say? Stop Asian hate. You're saying China made the virus. That means that dumb white Americans are going to, what, like go burn down the local Panda Express? Don't you think that that kind of rhetoric that came out of these same media outlets, don't you think that's a little more racist to suggest that, oh, those stupid Americans think that all Chinese people are evil? No. Today we have multiple stories of Chinese spies being discovered either in Politico circles over in Belgium, and I mean Politico, the political magazine and outlet. And then, of course, the wife of an executive in Oracle, Java, America's Silicon Valley bedrock of AI and also computer infrastructure. Everything for a long time ran on Java. You don't see people going around, at least a lot of people, and saying, yes, clearly all of these people that look Asian, those are Chinese spies. No. In fact, as you recall, the media stopped that campaign of Stop Asian Hate after all of the crimes in New York City against Asian people were committed by a protected class in the media's eyes. So interesting that we're now jumping into the victimhood express because, of course, it couldn't just be come to this country. If you're from India, you speak the language, you read the language, awesome. Don't mind. You assimilate, I don't have any issues with you being here. But if you don't assimilate, if you don't speak the language, you don't get to drive a several-ton vehicle down the interstate at high speeds. Womp freaking womp. Put in some work. Now, moving on, because we have a lot here. Zohran Mamdani is also playing the victim card. Why is he playing the victim card? Well, because Andrew Cuomo, out of nowhere, took off the gloves in the recent New York City mayoral debate, bent Zohran over his knee, and went on a 30-second rant that tore him to shreds. So Zohran has to save face now. And so he's doing what every single person in this country running for office from that side of the aisle does. He gets out there and complains about, you guessed it, Islamophobia. Here you go.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City.
He's faking tears, by the way.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
There you go. There's a Norm Macdonald joke from before he passed, and it's been proven correct so many times. People have unironically done the Norm Macdonald joke. I'm not going to do the accent because I just, Norm's not one of mine just yet. He said, what terrifies me is if ISIS were to detonate a nuclear device and kill 50 million Americans, imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims. It's always this story with the left. Someone does something that is extremely inappropriate. Someone does something that is illegal. Perhaps a targeted epidemic. There's a pattern that has been recognized. And immediately it's, oh, what we really need to worry about is all of the LGBTQ people reading in libraries. They're being harassed. No, Americans don't buy this. This victimhood card is not going to work played yet again. Now, this brings us over to Letitia James, who has allegedly committed all kinds of mortgage fraud and investment fraud. And now that the Trump administration has charged her with committing one of the most obvious and trackable, traceable forms of fraud known to man or powerful woman, she's out here claiming that it's not actually about her and the obvious mortgage fraud. Really, it's about you and me and all of us. Just, you go, girl. Here you go.
But this is not about me. This is about all of us. And about a justice system which has been weaponized. A justice system which has been used as a tool of revenge.
Yeah, okay, Letitia. We're going to let the radio crew head to commercial, continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett cast. Now, she did continue in her little rally, and she's stuttering, she's stammering, because you can tell she's clearly nervous here. And she wants to know that she's not to deterred of anybody. No deterreds here.
Up for the rights of New Yorkers and Americans, and I will not be deterred.
That's a lie.
And I will not be deterred. I will not be distracted. I will do my job each and every day, and that's why I'm headed back to New York, because there's work to be done standing up for the rule of law.
I love that. There's work to do. We've actually got Letitia out here. I love it. What work are you talking about? It's all about you. I'm a victim. I've got work. I'm so brave and amazing and super duper. And when they can't claim any of that, they of course claim victimhood from ICE. They claim that what we really have to do right now is stop the Nazi takeover of ICE in the country. It's terrible. Oh, it's awful. So much so that now Lori Lightfoot, who is just looking worse by the day, but smiling because her approval rating was somehow not as low as current Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. She was on TV, a bad decision, calling for ICE agents to be doxxed and their home addresses and their identities revealed.
We start the process of unmasking the agents. Even though they're wearing masks, every single one of them has a towel.
You say unmasking, they're going to say you're going to dox them, and that's why threats against them are up.
They are on public property, out in the open. We have an absolute right under our Constitution to be able to document what's happening. Every single.
Okay, first of all, that's not how that works. Number two, public property is not some magical zippity-zoppity, gimme the boppity, presto situation. No. You don't have the right to expose undercover agents. There is no state or Commonwealth statute in this country, nor a federal statute, that allows you to compromise an active police investigation, upholding the law. Now, you can investigate the agency. The Oversight Committee is welcome to drag Kristi Noem or Tom Homan before them in the House or the Senate. But no, you don't have the right to do this. She can claim this. I mean, I know, Lori Lightfoot, holding her up as a beacon of legal literacy, is like trying to keep Ellen DeGeneres sober. Very, very difficult thing to do, but alas.
One of those agents, height, weight, hair color, they wear their vests in a particular way. They're wearing insignias, even the masks that they wear, the shoes that they wear, the cars that they're driving. We have a right to compile that information and put together a profile of each of these agents that's alleged to have committed crime. This is not about doxing them. This is not about putting them in danger. And I'm sure.
Again, she can say, well, this isn't about doxing them, but it is about doxing them because we have a right to dox them and I don't like them. If there were crimes ICE agents were definitively committing, if there were actual cases of disappearances of abuse, those clips would be on repeat 24/7, 365. It would be all over everywhere. And yet, that's just not the case. Now, on another note, some outlets out there, some anchors on some outlets, I should say, have made the decision to frame any action taken by ICE as a crime, completely ignoring any context. Here was an anchor on CNN doing that earlier today.
Right here in this video, you can see Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino appearing to throw a tear gas canister toward anti-ICE protesters on Thursday. So right here, we're freezing the video so you can see it more clearly. As the protesters run away, the camera shows a cloud of smoke in that area. The Department of Homeland Security says protesters threw rocks, prompting Bovino to throw that canister of tear gas. And in a statement, they say, quote, the use of chemical munitions was conducted in full accordance with CBP policy and was necessary to ensure the safety of both law enforcement and the public.
When CNN anchors have reported on stories related to other matters before, some with, I would argue, a little more responsibility even on said network, have suggested quite clearly rocks led to the pepper spray. Not the pepper spray and the tear gas. Oh, also there may have been some rocks. Irresponsible. We'll be back in a second to pick up the radio crew from commercial. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. There are a couple of issues right now between the United States and our dear hat, I'm afraid. The United States right now has paused indefinitely trade negotiations with Canada. Now, you'll remember that Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, came down to the United States and met with President Trump. And in the process of meeting with President Trump, essentially kind of bent low and kissed the ring. And a large number of tariffs were being readjusted to different trigger rates, different industries, things like that. And the Conservatives and the Liberals up in Canada were really perturbed. And I said at the time, this is going to have some serious consequences to the United States. Because when the Liberals and the Conservatives, both parties, are upset with the leader because they both think he caved to Trump, which he did, then you're going to start seeing rogue actors. Right now, you have a premier of one of the most liberal provinces in Canada and the premier of the, without a doubt, the most conservative province in Canada giving Mark Carney the finger. And it's going to cause some significant issues for his administration, trade in the future, and perhaps an entire province seceding. So, first of all, a Truth Social post from the President of the United States yesterday. Canada cheated and got caught. They fraudulently took a big buy ad saying that Ronald Reagan did not like tariffs, when he actually loved tariffs for our country and its national security. Canada is trying to illegally influence the United States Supreme Court in one of the most important rulings in the history of our country. He then talks about Ronald Reagan and Canada cheating on tariffs in the past. And essentially, Trump says, look, you're going to air ads in our country while the Supreme Court is deciding a very important case. And while there are elections coming up, you're going to air things in certain districts. First of all, that's illegal. And he's correct. That's illegal. You can't do that. And so he said, fine. Cut off the negotiations. Everything spun into what can be best described as a roller coaster diving through a dumpster filled with gasoline. Everyone immediately needed to see what this ad was all about and who okayed this ad, because Mark Carney didn't okay this. This wasn't a Carney idea. It was Premier Doug Ford. You remember Doug Ford, the man who said he was going to shut off Niagara Falls. That Doug Ford of Ontario. Tim Walz, but with slightly more maple syrup in his bloodstream. Well, Doug Ford aired this ad, I believe, if we actually have it ready to roll here. Yes, this ad, again, using language from Ronald Reagan, essentially against the Trump administration.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization.
So essentially the idea is that Canada was going to, wait a minute, why am I explaining to you what this ad is for? You should hear it from the actual Premier of Ontario himself, Doug Ford.
We're going to launch a $75 million ad, and we're going to repeat that message to every Republican district there is right across the entire country.
Now, that's a little bit more damning, I'm afraid, than just running the ad itself. Because what Doug Ford is admitting to right there is interfering in U.S. elections. First of all, that's illegal in Canadian law. Second of all, that's illegal across every commonwealth in the British former empire. Just a little fun fact there. And number three, that is very much illegal in the United States. That you're not allowed to do that. Now, here's where things get a little interesting. So Doug Ford has since announced that, he says, in speaking with Prime Minister Carney, Ontario will pause its U.S. advertising campaign effective Monday so that trade talks can resume. Now, there is, I believe, an NBA game that is being hosted in Canada that essentially the United States will be watching that ad already. So again, this is illegal in the United States. You can't do this. You can't interfere in U.S. elections. Now, what I had played before, Ronald Reagan, that was actually taken completely out of context because in the terms of international leverage, Ronald Reagan was in favor of using tariffs at some times, not just kind of generally painting them across the board, but at some times, according to Reagan, yeah, tariffs were appropriate.
Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well. In certain select cases, like the Japanese semiconductors, we've taken steps to stop unfair practices against American products, but we've still maintained our basic long-term commitment to free trade and economic growth.
So the president making it clear to letters, this is back when the president actually answered questions directly. We do have that again. How nice that it's not, the auto pen signing that into Twitter. But in this case, President Trump and Reagan both understand that when there are national security interests, when there are specific industries that are at play, using tariffs as a negotiating tactic in order to get the other country to cave, yeah, that's a conservative principle. It is. Sorry, I don't know how to break it to you otherwise. This puts Doug Ford in even more hot water, but we'll set him aside for just a moment here. And according to producer Nick, there are, the Nuggets and Raptors meeting in Vancouver. There's a couple of other weird things. Sorry, excuse me. No, the Nuggets and the Raptors were on October 6th. Producer Daniel's telling me it's an MLB game tonight. Gotcha. I knew there was a professional sporting event in Canada they were going to. That's why you have a producer team who's always on the ball. No pun intended. Now, on the Alberta side of things, Alberta is really giving Carney the finger. They have now passed legislation essentially that says you pass a federal law in Canada, unless Alberta agrees to it, we're not doing it. That's very, very, very secessionist. There's no way around that. And there is a growing majority in Alberta who desires to seek independence from Canada. Here is Danielle Smith, the very conservative new premier of Alberta, making some of these cases clear.
The Constitution is clear. Provinces have authority over matters within their jurisdiction, and that authority cannot be signed away by Ottawa. That's why we are taking the next step to defend Alberta's constitutional rights through Bill 1, the International Agreements Act. Previous legislation protected provincial jurisdiction in matters related to trade and investment.
Uh-oh.
The new act strengthens that protection to cover all areas of provincial jurisdiction. Ottawa can sign international agreements with other countries. That's their right. But this legislation, it makes it clear that those agreements will only become enforceable in Alberta if implemented under provincial legislation.
Radio crew, we have to send you guys to commercial. We're going to do a little map time with Tonus here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. See you guys after the break. Now, why all of the kerfluffle from the Conservatives? After all, with the Liberals having a tizzy and a half, why wouldn't places like Alberta, the Conservative bastion, be going all in all the time, maximum full speed ahead at knocking Carney out of the office? Well, first of all, because they just had their elections. And number two, it all comes down to America's favorite freedom supplement, oil, black gold, Texas tea. Because the United States, we enjoy one word in today's day and age, whether you were in the kind of George W. Bush, Hank Hill age of politics or today. It's pipelines. Americans do, in fact, want pipeline infrastructure. But there's a problem. And this is where it really starts to be an annoyance to President Trump. You see, this guy named Mark Carney, he got up into office and promised that he doesn't want any pipelines going through Canada, especially Alberta.
Hi, Prime Minister. Kate McKenna with CBC News. I'm just wondering if you or anyone in your government has had conversations with a private proponent about building Keystone XL.
We have I or someone in my government has had conversations with a variety of proponents and operators and developers of various energy projects across this country, so actual or prospective.
He's futzing around. Come on, get around to it, bud.
Including that project, but as well many others. I have not personally had direct conversations about that project.
In other words, no. So remember the Keystone XL pipeline? Producer Nick, remember Trump got into office. What did people immediately start complaining about? Trump hasn't finished the Keystone pipeline. Remember, they came right out and said that? Well, it turns out that the Trump administration has been actively pursuing the Keystone pipeline, which includes passage through places like Alberta. Now, if you can check out some cool map information here, you'll notice that up here is oil-rich Alaska. It's pretty nifty, cool place to drill for oil. And then there's this territory, this future colony of the United States right here that we don't own right now. It's called Canada. And right here where my finger is, for those who are watching, that's Alberta. And pipelines like Keystone are a huge success drive waiting to happen, a huge stimulant, and then some, for Alberta's economy. And essentially they're in a catch-22. Because right now, if they don't build the pipeline, Alberta is screwed. Again, it's like telling Texas and Oklahoma, sorry, no more oil. Or telling California, sorry, no more drag queens. That's the main export. So what are you going to do? Well, if they build the pipeline, Quebec and Toronto, I'm not going to play the clip because we don't have enough time. Essentially, they want to tax Alberta to hell and gone and take all of the oil money from selling it to the United States. So what the premier of Alberta is doing is saying, no, we're going to trade oil with the United States directly, up yours, Mark Carney, and this is how the secession movement of Alberta moves forward. Now, I'm just going to make this clear. If Alberta does, in fact, try to secede and gain independence, it will result in becoming a territory of the United States. I'm just going to make that clear for the boys, girls, and squirrels. This is why it matters. Mark Carney does not want jobs. He does not want additional work and pipelines and infrastructure, not just in Canada, but in the United States. Because if that pipeline goes up, that is a permanent stream of income and labor for Americans and Canadians. And if we can convince Alberta to secede and join the United States, that is a real thing that is actually available now. Again, you know how much I despise the kind of 4D chess stuff. If Trump somehow negotiates this, my God, that will be the greatest foreign policy move since Teddy Roosevelt kept the Philippines from essentially burning down. We'll get back to this in a bit later and some real questions, again, that everyone needs to be focusing on. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Canada is in turmoil. It's practically collapsing. You've got Conservative Premier over in Alberta getting ready for Bill number 1, which basically says, Canadian federal government, get the bleep out of Canada, eh? And then over in Ontario, you have Doug Ford trying to run illegal political interference ads in the United States. It is a mess. What are reporters over in the United States asking? Because there was a press conference today. Do you know how I know this? Because Elizabeth Mitchell, our White House correspondent, she texts me and says, hey, Tony, I'm going to be at the White House press conference today. Or my former colleague, Mary Margaret Olahan of the Daily Wire, she's at the press conference. I follow their work. I keep an eye on the questions asked. And do you know what they focused on in the press conferences, in the questions to the president, in the questions to the members of the administration? The ballroom. The ballroom. Oh no, he's building a ballroom. It's gonna look bad. Why can't he just build a basketball court like Obama? Oh, those office cubicles. No, they're losing it. Democrats are, by the way, I'm not joking. Democrats have put all of their energy not into questions that are actually worth listening to, that actually answer issues that we have here in the middle of the country. I'm not broadcasting from the Beltway here. They're not focused on that. Here is Nancy Pelosi and Amy Klobuchar gathered around their phone doing some kind of really weird, awkward watching the White House be torn apart, as though this right here, this has to stop. It's the epitome of the entitled rich coastal elite. Here you go.
No, it is actually a demolition zone. That is what it is. Look at that.
Oh,
unbelievable.
Wow. This is a construction zone. You know, Donald Trump can't hear people asking for help because there's all the
machinery. I mean, these are.
This is how my almost 2-year-old son watches construction videos. He goes, oh, blah, 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 blah. And I go, yes, big machinery. Also, Donald Trump can't hear people asking for help. I'm sorry, is Bob the Builder burying bodies underneath the East Wing? What is she talking about? Must be an Indian burial ground, Nate, Elizabeth Warren. See, you know, producer Nick.
I don't think they're actually watching the video on that phone. I think it's the script.
It's the
because they're not actually like watching a video based on their eyes. It's sort of a movement left to right.
Let's do some investigation here. Let's see if we can zoom in on old Elizabeth Pow Wow Chow Warren's glasses and see if we can get a reflection in the screen here.
Bulldozers taking down the people's house right in front of her eyes.
Leveling the people's house so that he can.
Her eyes aren't moving when she's looking at the screen. Yeah, she's reading a script. She's not actually watching the video in question.
Have some class.
No class at all.
You don't have to watch the video off a phone.
And I'm going to say this as a millennial. There is an entire class of videos in which content creators scam people into thinking they have something super edgy. Here's a pair of dudes who are trying to convince people that the glass stovetop cleaner that all of us know and can buy from Home Depot, Walmart, Target, whatever, is somehow a secret cleaner that's like a life hack. It's the exact same Elizabeth Warren video. Here you go.
All right, so apparently this hack can make your stovetops look brand new. No way, that's over the top. That's over the top. Yeah, you just get a secret cleaner, let it dry, and you scrape it off, and that's the newest.
Wow, the reactions are so real, it's incredible.
No, it is actually a demolition zone. That is what it is. Look at that.
Oh,
unbelievable.
Wow. This is a construction zone.
This is the secret cleaner. It's a secret construction zone. Elizabeth Mitchell, however, our White House correspondent, was asking what the kids would call actual real and useful questions. This about cattle ranchers in the United States with concerns about Trump leveraging Argentine exports of beef and importing in the escalating trade war dynamic with China. Here was our colleague, Elizabeth Mitchell.
Thank you. Cattle ranchers who supported the president's election have raised some concerns about plans to import beef from Argentina. How will the Trump administration support those farmers?
Look, the president hears those concerns. He addressed them yesterday himself. President loves our ranchers, and our ranchers love our president. And in fact, the president did a lot for them in his first term here. They are struggling because of the many horrible policies of the previous administration. President loves our ranchers, and he also loves American consumers, and he wants to do right by both. So the immediate solution to the problem of the rising cost of beef, president wants to bring that down as we have to increase our supply. And so that's what he's doing with respect to these imports.
We now go over to Elizabeth Mitchell, our White House correspondent for the Daily Signal, a new scoop on the Trump administration moving to roll back a Biden rule. Elizabeth, tell us more.
Hey, Tony. So what happened here is that under the Biden administration, HHS's Office of Refugee Resettlement passed a final rule which says that taxpayers, meaning the Office of Refugee and Resettlement, are required to fund abortion travel for illegal immigrant unaccompanied minors. So these are kids who cross the border alone, are illegal immigrants, and say they're in a state like Texas where abortion is illegal. The government is required, because of the Biden administration, to pay for a flight or an Uber or a ride of some other kind for that child to go from Texas to maybe California to obtain that abortion. And so that's what happened under the Biden administration, and sources at HHS tell me that that is going to soon come to an end because the Trump administration believes this violates the Hyde Amendment, a law from the 1970s which says taxpayers can't fund abortions. So as a result, HHS is looking to bring that rule in compliance with the Hyde Amendment to make sure taxpayers are not funding or in any way facilitating abortions.
Now, of course, what the press in the press room might ask about this particular scoop is, why isn't the federal government focusing on why minors crossing the border illegally are pregnant? That sounds kind of like a human trafficking or a sex trafficking situation to me. You know, just go pay for this abortion, clear that up, and then you can get right back to doing sex work as a minor. That's how a lot of these cartels operate. I personally would like to see questions regarding that in the press room, or a number of other issues that Americans are focused about right now. I know you're in the press briefing room every single day. You're also in the traveling pool with the president or the vice president. So many questions about the ballroom that, at least according to the polling, do not matter one flip of a wooden nickel to Americans. And of course, this HHS and this DHS issue is not the only one. I believe you had a question about the farming and ranching situation in the United States. Tell us about that.
So there's two different issues at stake here. One is that beef prices for consumers are very high right now, which affects a lot of Americans who are reliant on ground beef, other things for their daily meals. And then on the other hand, ranchers are struggling because there's been low supply this year. So the president has said he's importing beef from Argentina at a low tariff rate. And that, of course, is going to be competition for American ranchers. And the issue here really is that a lot of these ranchers supported the president and are very big advocates for him, including just the General Rancher Union. And so they're really upset right now. They're feeling very betrayed. They supported the president, and now they're having this competition of this Argentinian beef. They're saying it's not America first. And so I asked Caroline what the Trump administration is going to do to help these ranchers who are really off-put by this decision to buy Argentinian beef and who are struggling with low supply shortages, and then also consumers who need cheaper beef. And she said that the president loves ranchers, wants to support them. He has a plan to make ranching great again, of course, but he also is helping consumers. And so he's balancing those two interests there. So she walked me through the new plan by the Department of Agriculture to help ranchers and create more ranchers so that young people go into this noble profession, she said, and make sure that we can have beef at an affordable price as well.
Well, of course, the way that the economy in the United States adapts to the president's international policy is supposed to not only drive Americans' confidence in the market and then concerns at the ballot box, but of course, it's supposed to drive how the press is asking questions about these topics. I know that you've asked a lot of other questions of the presidency that Americans are concerned about. For example, the election in New York City. Is there anything new you can give us about the president's involvement at all with the city that he's done so much work in now under this, ridiculously toxic mayoral election?
The president loves New York City, of course, but he has, until this point, declined to endorse a particular candidate. And I asked him, would you call for the Republican candidate in the mayoral race, his name is Curtis Sliwa, to drop out? Because there's a new poll that shows that if the Republican Curtis Sliwa dropped out, his votes would all go to Andrew Cuomo, and then Andrew Cuomo and the independent candidate would be only 4 points away from beating Mamdani, who we know, of course, is a socialist.
What did he say to that?
Sympathizes with Hamas. So what the president told me is that we have the choice between a Democrat and a communist. Very bad choice, of course, lesser of two evils kind of deal. And he said that he is not going to endorse anyone at this time, not going to get further involved. He hasn't decided yet what he's going to do. But if Curtis Sliwa dropped out, it definitely would help Andrew Cuomo. So I think it was a really interesting response from the president.
Elizabeth Mitchell, love having you around the press briefing room and the president, because again, right now when so many in the media are focused on everything but what Americans are concerned about, great to have you asking those questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We got to send the radio crew off to commercial. See you guys on the other side of it. We've got way more to cover. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, one final and extremely important point regarding the presidential administration's decision to import beef from the Argentine economy to the United States. The two things can be true here. First of all, the situation with the trade war with China, with Trump getting ready to go meet with their dictator, communist super guy, Winnie the Pooh for life, Chairman Xi Jinping, that is coming up, and the president does, in fact, need a lot of leverage walking into that. The stronger the economy is in Argentina, the more it hurts China, because Argentina does not have to rely on China. Number two, right now, beef prices in the United States are high for a number of reasons. One of them is because of a series of regulatory measures pushed by the Biden administration that are now being let up. So that makes it easier for example, cattle ranchers to produce meat and sell it without essentially losing all of their money to A, the middleman packaging and processing organizations, and then B, the series of regulatory systems that make it far more difficult to raise and slaughter cattle. So the last and most important point of this right now is that Americans can't afford beef. And so importing things to lower grocery prices right now, that matters. Now, saying that as well, as we are, in fact, sponsored, just so happens to be on the screen right now, Well Done Beef here in Greenfield, Indiana, welldonebeef.com. It's the quality of the meat, not how done it is when you cook it. We love that farm. It's a local farm. I encourage you to support your local farms. But if you're in a large city that is far away from local farms and you're unable to do so, this import policy is in fact going to help you. So a couple of things can be true at the same time there. And sometimes, as Kissinger articulated in The Principle, you do sometimes have to choose the lesser of two evils in a situation. This is in fact a solution that causes a lesser amount of pain. Going for the maximum amount of pain right now is House Leader Hakeem Jeffries. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, I should say, who in the middle of the shutdown is digging himself a hole so deep that I think you actually legally have to register it by calling 411. So here's good old, 811. Wouldn't it be for calling before you dig? That'd be call 811. And then what the sign say? Yeah, a little joke there. Hakeem Jeffries was called out on CNBC this morning, and it is brutally painful to watch. This is an unprepared leader of the Democrat Party.
It said what you are asking the Republicans to do right now when they control the White House, the Senate, and the House is effectively what the Democrats could not do when they controlled all three of those heads of government themselves. The 10-year setup for this, for these, or the 3-year setup for the expiration of these credits was intentionally put in. It was put in when you controlled the White House, the House, and the Senate. You couldn't get it passed for longer. And so this is a setup that kind of your own creation that you all couldn't extend beyond that. Now you want the Republicans to do something you didn't do when you were in power?
It's not a setup beyond what we could do. We extended the Affordable Care Act tax credits in 2022.
Why? What were the Affordable Care Act tax credits supposed to do? It was supposed to be a COVID stopgap measure. COVID's been over for a while there, homie.
For 3 years. The program is working. It's providing health care to tens of millions of people in an affordable way, and it should be continued. It's interesting to us that Republicans decided that they would prefer to permanently extend massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors.
Oh, we're going to try that again. Ain't going to happen. Ain't working. No, if Obamacare was so freaking wonderful, why does it need propped up every 3.5 minutes? And if Obamacare doesn't get extra government subsidies, why do prices skyrocket? Obamacare is already the law. We're going to get to some more news here in a second. Don't go anywhere. Tony Kinnett Cast. We got to pick up the radio crew.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Unfortunately, before we get to some of the more fun stuff this evening, there's more news to report, including something that is especially egregious from, you guessed it, another Politico magazine alumni. This one from the Politico California playbook. This would be Carla Marinucci, who posted regarding the presence of ICE.gov in the Bay Area. She wants to encourage people to post this information, and I'll explain what it is on the screen, with county rapid response hotlines. And what she displays is a series of phone numbers of who to call in different NGO groups and things like that. And then she includes something that's a little bit extra concerning here. We'll see if I can kind of zoom into this particular thing. What to do if you see ICE. Salute. SALUTE. Call your county rapid response hotline and share detailed information using this helpful acronym. Salute. Kind of an interesting acronym. That's because it's used elsewhere. Salute is the standard, so far as I know. Lee Wolf, the producer of the Ruthless podcast, pointed this out his time in the Marines. I am very much aware of this being in use in the Army. The Salute acronym is an established method to remember how and what to report if you see an enemy. as in contact front. If you are in a position where you observe enemy movement, enemy combatant movement, you need to remember salute, size, activity, location, unit, time, equipment. For them, it's size, actions, location, uniform, time, equipment. It's the same stuff. Anyone out there, anyone at all, who has any kind of military training whatsoever, you know exactly what this is. You know what a salute report is. My gosh, I even remember the designation. It's an Army 38112 report. It's a salute under the TARP program. This is openly advocating for military tactics against federal law enforcement. You say, Tony, why does that matter? What are you talking about? It just looks like you're kind of pulling at straws here. Oh, ye of little faith. Remember Graham Plattner, or whatever, Graham Plattner, that Senate candidate for Maine? Of course, no one really cares about, what goes on up in Maine other than, Susan Collins with the sniffles. So what's going on up in Maine? You have a Democrat primary that's getting a little bit heated because Graham Plattner had a certain kind of skull and bones, not just like the Jolly Roger skull and bones, but he had the exact SS skull and then bones laid down at the bottom on his chest in a tattoo. And he was called out for it because it's like, wow, that's kind of gross and disgusting. And some additional research into this guy shows that he recruited for a socialist paramilitary group up in Maine called the SRA, the Socialist Rifle Association. Now, the Socialist Rifle Association has been implicated in a series of active shootings and domestic terror attacks around these United States, especially against federal law enforcement. Now you have a Democrat Senate candidate who has actively recruited for a terror organization. You have a former Politico writer who is pushing military means and acronyms for reporting on federal law enforcement movement. You have people like Lori Lightfoot, who is, of course, called for the doxing of federal law enforcement. I want to make sure that I get this one included. Illinois State Representative Margaret Croak sent out an email this afternoon doxing Immigration Customs Enforcement, listing their car details and their license plate numbers. So much for it not being about doxing. You say, Tony, why does this matter? Why would, she send out this information? As we just talked about yesterday on the show, the new hip thing in a lot of these anti-ICE domestic terror attacks. And again, the reason it is classified as a terror attack is it is not about the individual. They are not going after, for example, their ex who happens to work at ICE and they're mad because they didn't pay child support this month. No, that would be a crime of passion and a premeditated attempted murder. This is terrorism because they are attacking an organization for political reasons in order to intimidate through violence. That is terrorism. When individuals ram their cars into federal vehicles, that is terrorism. And that's what these license plate numbers and things are being shared for. You see this on the road. This state representative, this Democrat in Illinois, I know that's redundant, hopes that you will ram your vehicle into the federal officer and whoever's inside. Because God, again, they're supposed to care about the detainees. If the detainees are in, the car, I'm sorry, I don't know if you know the safety ratings on SUVs, but it's not exactly, a hug from the Michelin man in the backseat of an SUV, according to the safety ratings. But they don't care. And this brings us, last but certainly not least, to the other people who are being harassed that aren't even in ICE. In Oakland, California, clips are emerging of the U.S. Coast Guard being harassed by these Antifa protesters and rioters.
This morning, it doesn't look good. Hey, back up.
The individuals they are going up to and harassing, again, not ICE members, the Coast Guard, just the Coast Guard.
Back up! Hey, back up! Leave them alone! They're not doing anything! Don't touch him! Don't touch him! ICE is not...
I do appreciate the protester that went up and started screaming really disgusting stuff in the face of the Coast Guard member. And then the young lady comes up and goes, "Don't you touch him! Don't you do nothing! He's coming up and talking to you! Don't you touch him!" I'm sorry. That guy came up to the Coast Guardsman. If the Coast Guardsman gives him a shove like, "Get back," that's not outside of the bounds of normalcy. Producer Nick?
This really shows that there's two parts of it. Anybody who's telling you that Antifa is not an organization is lying to you, and they have prerogative for doing so. And Antifa is not going up against ICE. They're going up against any organization that is doing the bidding / directions / will of the people in enforcing the law. They
Correct.
are anti-American.
Correct.
They're anti-government.
By going up against any law enforcement of the duly elected chief executive of the United States, it is in fact, by definition, not just terrorism, it is an insurrection. And again, remember how I was just telling you about the car ramming? Here is an individual, and again, at an Antifa riot, who was attempting to ram their U-Haul into federal law enforcement, and I believe also the Coast Guard. These are the same group of people. Yes, this is also the Coast Guard. Later that evening. So you can see that the U-Haul backing up as though they're going to plow over U.S. Coast Guardsmen. And seeing the domestic terror attack currently unfolding, they immediately unload what appear to just be pepper balls, paintballs, rubber bullets and stuff. No, actual live rounds. Good, finally. On the U-Haul. Radio crew, I'm seeing the clock here, and that means it is time for you guys to go before we finish this particular clip. So we're going to continue on the live stream. We've got some bonus tonus this evening that'll beat the band. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. See you all on the live stream, youtube.com, rumble.com/Daily Signal. We'll see y'all there. Now, just to continue, here's what happens when this U-Haul tries to back into federal law enforcement and the Coast Guard. You're right. I saw the muzzle flashes. Those are live rounds. Good. And so they start driving away rather quickly. Are they shot? Are they bleeding? Do we know anything about that, producer Nick?
They were not apprehended, so there's no updates about the state of the driver.
They haven't been apprehended yet. Understood. I'm going to make this just as clear as I can here. A lot of times that you might see perhaps a minor glitch in the clips that are set up. We start the bulk of writing the show at about 4 p.m., and there is a very, very specific reason that we do so. So many shows out there are written, even evening shows, by like 11 a.m., 10:30 a.m. that morning. We don't do that. We try to bring you the most up-to-date news and analysis that we can. And this means that sometimes probably against better judgment, I don't watch the clips all the way through. Now, producer Nick may line up a couple of clips and we have a brief kind of synopsis. Say, well, you don't watch all of the clips first? Or why isn't that being unprepared? No, sometimes it is just as important to show you the clip itself and then respond to it and correct something if necessary. And one of the reasons I do that is because I make predictions, quite frequently, that just so happen to be right. These are active domestic terror attacks against, as producer Nick very aptly pointed out, against the people of these United States. And then they walk out in front of you and claim that they are the victim. They are the victim because, I don't know what, you didn't call them whatever magical pronoun or allow them to vote in elections as an illegal immigrant this month. Ridiculous stuff. Now, this brings us over to a little something I had to skip on Zohran Mamdani. Producer Nick, I happen to know that you're going to love this one. So he's out there doing his big smiley communist, super duper whatever. And one of the things that he included, or his campaign staff included, paid for by Zohran for New York City, is a version of the New York Knicks logo. And instead of the word Knicks, it has Zohran. And the New York Knicks have officially issued a cease and desist to the Zohran Mamdani campaign because they don't want anything to do with this guy. Anything to do. He's been on video in the last couple of days refusing to condemn Sharia law. He's refused to condemn Hamas and Hezbollah and suggest that they lay down their arms to the rightful government of Lebanon, which is not a Jewish government, or the rightful governments of the Palestine or the Palestinian people. the Palestinian Authority or other groups right now, according to the signed peace agreements. He won't do anything like that. These groups want nothing to do with him. Now, this brings us to Andrew Cuomo, who waited until like 10 days out from the election to actually take off the gloves and aired what is probably one of the funniest anti-Zohran Mamdani ads that I have yet seen. He actually just took the gloves off and went after him. If you're listening to the show, I'd recommend watching it over on the podcast side by now. He has since taken this down, but I wanted to show you guys what it looked like anyway.
Zohran Mamdani's opponents want you to believe he's an inexperienced radical whose policies will make New York City more dangerous. But what do his...
So you can see him eating rice with his hands there. That's going to come into play here in a minute.
Actual supporters think?
Mamdani isn't crazy.
He's just trying to even the playing field.
You know, give everyone a fair shot. Sure, he said multiple times we need to defund the police, but that was just a metaphor.
And yes, he did say crime.
Yeah, the pimp. The pimp was the one saying defund the police thing. That's really funny.
Is a social construct, but that was also a metaphor.
His main backer, the Democratic Socialists' ideas are common sense.
This is the mob.
Such as decriminalizing misdemeanors like shoplifting.
Oh my gosh, they're making a black man rob the pharmacy. Oh my god, and he's got the keffiyeh and the mask on. Oh my.
Third-degree assault.
Oh, he's wearing a wife beater. Oh no.
Trespassing.
I see why you didn't want me to watch this before the show now. Oh my.
Prostitution.
And drunk driving.
Oh my gosh, that's Nancy Pelosi.
With plans to decriminalize all drugs, Mamdani will be a job creator.
He just handed, oh, okay, it's not a crayon. I was going to say, you feeding a Marine? No, he's handing the homeless guy a syringe. All right.
For drug dealers. Instead of helping us homeless get off the streets and into the mental health facilities we need, he wants to give us safe injection sites to do crack and let us sleep in subway carts. These are actual policies.
That's a different black guy. I mean, obviously it's AI. These are all AI generated. But I'm amazed at the Democrat campaign that actually did these things.
Mamdani and the DSA want to implement on day one.
You're telling me his producer, you're telling me his campaign actually ran this themselves? Like his actual campaign? Or was this like an ally group? Or because if this is, I mean, I know they took it down, but if this is actually his campaign, whoo boy indeed.
A woman's being domestically abused. She finally won't have to deal with some pesky cop to arrest the abuser, but now a social worker to help, kumbaya the situation.
So it goes on like that for another, 20, 30 seconds. It's pretty wild stuff. And the eating rice with the hand thing, there's now all of these people that are whining and complaining, the young socialists of New York who are very, very, very grumpy. Because again, you got to make Zohran the victim here. Oh, they're saying that he's eating with his hands like that's a bad thing. Oh, that's Zionist propaganda, which LOL. Okay. By the way, yes, Zohran has done a video eating rice with his hands to try to convince everyone that he's just like the immigrants of New York and totally didn't grow up in the lap of luxury, eating off of gold silverware. Now, by the way, eating food with your hands like that, I don't recommend it. See, human civilization has in fact invented spoons. The Japanese have like wide rice spoons that are kind of neat. There are kind of flatter spoons that they've invented for eating rice in China. Really, really cool. China and rice, kind of a big deal. In fact, in southern India, they have a very specific type of spoon used for eating rice, so you don't have to, eat with your hands. In Africa, the spoon and the fork have made considerable progress. In Eastern Europe, spoons, when they're not being used to stab people in Serbia, are also used for eating. Even the French use silverware. And if the French can do it, you can too. Hi, I'm Tony Kinnett, and I'm running for mayor. No, in all seriousness, I really am amazed at the victimhood complex. Pretending that if you don't honor dirty eating rice with your hands, guys, that's really culturally insensitive, Tony. Do you know why humans stopped eating rice with their hands? Because it's freaking disgusting. Because it's disgusting. Well, my culture believe. Shut up. No one cares about your culture. No one cares. If you have a culture that involves really gross, disgusting things, I don't want those aspects. I don't. And it's really insulting to suggest that it's like somehow demeaning to people from Uganda or from India or from Pakistan or any of the stans or any other place on earth to say, well, these people, they all vote the same, they all eat the same, and that's why we've got to pander to them. No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that because you know what? Sikhs who have come to this country, first of all, there were several regiments that included some of the most valiant fighters in World War I and II who were Sikhs. They were excellent. You know what they could also do? Read English and read map directions. You don't have to lower the standard for immigrants into the country. Raise the standards. It's supposed to be a country people want to come to. It's not insulting to anyone. Now, I do want to give some props to Steven Crowder's crew and comedian Josh Firestein, whose take on eating with their hands is it's really funny. Here you go.
I really don't see the issue with eating with your hands. I actually quite like it.
He's got a bowl of hot soup.
Don't Josh, don't do that with the soup. Okay.
Jeez. It's quite good.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. I like that. Excellent work to them. Lastly, for show stuff today, something that I really, really like, something that has warmed my heart, then we might do a mail time question or two. So this from Evie Magazine. Keira Knightley. You may remember Keira Knightley from Padme Amidala, Democracy Dies with Thunderous Applause, or, her lesser known role, a musical with Mark Ruffalo called Begin Again, which I highly recommend. The soundtrack is stellar. That's neither here nor there. Keira Knightley has, there's an article about her banning social media at home to protect her kids. Quote, I find it very terrifying because they are unregulated spaces. And I think for children, unregulated spaces are ones I want to protect them from. So in our house, we've got a no social media thing. They are not allowed on devices if we can't see what they're looking at. Now, I want to come back to that in a second because the language that's being used here, I think, is particularly important. I'll continue, though. She says, quote, we're at one of the schools that is doing the social media-free childhood, where the parents mostly do all the same thing. I do love it, seeing that co-ops are growing in the United States. It's an amazing thing. Just from my education background, that is the master-apprentice model and also forming co-ops. In which, let's say, a group of parents collectively hires a couple of teachers to teach the subjects and then work together to raise that group of children along a specific set of values, like homeschooling plus, in a way. It's a wonderful thing to see across the left and the right, the elites, the common folk, whatever you want to call it. It is becoming a more popular approach in the United States, and I say full steam ahead. Excellent stuff. She says, quote, so I think most of the parents at the school, there was a big push. I think most of us are in agreement that that's the way forward we want to go. But obviously not everybody, because it's an issue that divides a lot of people. So you got to have that last line in there. Otherwise, people get mad. The lady who's raising her children on 4.5 iPads glued to their face gets very, very upset if you point out, hey, maybe that's not responsible. So a couple of things here that I wanted to point out, because we got a question earlier last week that I haven't gotten around to answering. Trying to remember her name. It wasn't Carol. Maybe it was Carolyn. Lady whose name started with a C. I'm really sorry, Carolyn, if your name's not Carolyn. She asked if I had seen that Instagram and Meta were releasing new kinds of profiles for teenagers that are supposed to cut down and remove any kind of content that is suggested to be adult content. And if I thought, that was something that would be like appropriate for teenagers, is it a sign of culture growing that we have child profile things on social media? My answer to that, no. Stay away from that. Number one, no filter is going to keep a kid who wants to see something from something. Number two, those who want your children to see something, whose entire industries subsist on getting your kids hooked on it as soon as possible, or your grandkids hooked on it as soon as possible, they're going to find their ways around those filters. And number three, And may I say, perhaps the most important thing right now, one of the biggest scandals in the country is on the child gaming platform Roblox. Producer Nick and I have talked about this off camera quite a bit, in which individuals also on teenage accounts, posing as teenagers, catfishing, have done everything in their power to reach kids and teenagers anyway. Safest way to deal with this? Social media, you're not going to miss it. And as a guy on social media, if I didn't have this job, I absolutely wouldn't have social media anymore. And from the way that Keira Knightley actually frames this, the point that she's made is that in her house, no one does social media. As in, her kids don't come look over her shoulder and watch her scrolling through social media. She's not taking photos of her family and posting it online. I find that a very good thing. There is not a single person who has been deprived of social media and has lost a single beneficial thing. Not one. Not one. Even we were told, oh, but Facebook's wonderful. It's for photos of your family and whatever. Right now, all I see when I log on to Facebook are one of three things. Number one, I see a bunch of corporate posts because Facebook's got to make ad money. Number two, I see people bickering about nonsense in groups I don't remember signing up for. And unfortunately, because we're in politics, it's news that happened 3.5 months ago and it's all been debunked on both sides and it's obnoxious. It's horrible. And three, the other thing that I'm seeing is a bunch of AI garbage crap that isn't improving anyone's life anyway. Get rid of it. You can watch the show over here on YouTube. You absolutely can. We don't live stream to Facebook currently. I don't think we have any intention of doing so. We don't. Now, those things said, on that side, I do want to answer just a quick couple of mail time questions here. Keira Knightley played a decoy for Padme in episode 1. She wasn't actually Padme. Who was Padme? Natalie Portman. See, thank you. Keira Knightley is in Beginning In, though. It's an excellent movie. It's an excellent musical. All right, on to a couple of mail time questions here. This is from Mother of Three Men, apropos. If they, being the people involved in these car rammings, are using cars, should it be attempted murder? Just wondering. Yes. Yes, it is in fact attempted murder because you are aiming to cause harm which can result in a death. It's attempted murder. Especially given the social media posts that are flavoring a lot of these incidents. The reason I bring up the domestic terrorism charge is that there are certain crimes coupled with other crimes. It's the fish and chips of the legal system. Aggravated assault and battery instead of just good old-fashioned assault and battery. Things with foreign objects and weapons, the things that are more premeditated, the kinds of classes of crimes. It is attempted murder. Now, something I will praise from the Trump administration specifically, Attorney General Pam Bondi seems very happy to push for the maximum federal charges in any instance that she can. Like in the murder of Irina Zarutska, she's pushing for the death penalty of the man that stabbed her on that subway in Charlotte. So that kind of stuff specifically, really, really, really good. Another question, this is from Abad. It was to producer Nick, so I'll let you answer this one if you want, or you can kick it to me. Did Adam, as in Adam of Adam and Eve, have a belly button?
I thought this one was really interesting. So we are pretty apropos people to ask, as both pretty well developed in the STEM, but also as Christians interested in the theological implications of this.
Biology, science guys in the Christian faith. So what do you think? What are you going to say? Did Adam have a belly button?
I do not believe so.
I don't think so either. Neither Adam nor Eve had belly buttons because they didn't have parents. This is the chicken or the egg thing, by the way. This is why if anyone ever, asks, did the chicken or the egg come first? From a creationist perspective, it's the chicken. Because in the creationist perspective, God created the animals. The chicken came first to lay the eggs. In the kind of atheistic perspective,
it's also the chicken.
The egg came first. Because the egg would be the latest species mutation to be later considered the final chicken. It would have to be from that point. But I didn't realize we kind of disagreed there.
Well, the chicken had to develop the gene to produce the protein that allowed the egg to be in the way that it is.
All right, I think there'd be kind of questions based on when the mutation was definitive as the zygote that would become. See, this is what happens
Over
when you
millions of
ask
years.
actual biological theory questions to a couple of guys like that. All right, I think we can do just one more. I think we do just one more question here. Just one more for the day. So if you've got one, I think we might say what. When did the belly button happen?
Oh, somebody asked when did the belly button immediately after the next generation.
Oh yeah, first birth, because the belly button is just where the
Cain
umbilical
and
cord
Abel
came
had
in.
belly buttons.
Yeah.
But not everyone has a belly button in general. It is a genetic thing in that regards. But
That's true. In fact, a lot of children. I think there was a 24, one of the early, between 24 and 30 week babies, the preemies, that were born. That I think their body actually closed up the scar smooth. We were laughing at me. Why are you laughing at me? Were you making a joke?
somebody
and I took it
asked,
seriously?
why do I have nipples, Moldegard?
Why do I have nipples? That
I'm
reminds
assuming
me of
you're a man.
Is it Meet the Parents, where he's like, I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me? Little Robert De Niro. We're losing a lot of our audience here on that one. I'm so sorry. The answer to that one is that male breast tissue and nipples do in fact play a role. Yeah, they do. They're not completely vestigial. I do know the answer to that one because a high school A&P student asked me that ages ago. We're not going to get into that at the end of the Tony Kinnett cast. We might have to do a bio with Tony and push that into delayed and never coming out into ad nauseum. Yeah, but we're not doing that one. No, there is one other question that I've wanted to ask that's actually an important political question I will hit before the end of the show this particular weekend. And that is, Tony, do you believe the Supreme Court of the United States is going to rule in Trump's favor on the tariffs? I have never seen anything yet that would suggest that John Roberts would rule in favor of Trump on tariffs. Amy Coney Barrett is a flip of a coin here. I think that Alito could probably go towards the Trump administration's rationale on some national emergency stuff here. Clarence Thomas will. Brett Kavanaugh, 70% likelihood. Amy Coney Barrett's a dead flip. I just don't know. She's been very careful to avoid this question at all over the last year in the couple of interviews that she's been in. She's focused more on social issue answers primarily. John Roberts, I don't see him going yes. It's going to be close. And if, by the way, if the Supreme Court does rule against some of the tariffs in the Trump fashion here, it will be a kind of a partial ruling in that some of Trump's tariffs are definitive national security measures. Semiconductors and steel, very, very hard to argue that's not linked to national security. Very hard indeed. Auto manufacturing, I would say, given that auto manufacturing plant facilities are the very first to be converted in wartime stance, you can also make that. Bill Clinton used this rationale as well. It just never made it to the Supreme Court. These kind of auto manufacturing trades before NAFTA came through and ended up doing some topsy-turvy nonsense with that. As far as the general scope, like wheat tariffs or something on Europe, I don't necessarily see how, if Amy Coney Barrett rules against the president in this, I don't see how that one holds water. Do I think there's going to be reparations for these? Like you're going to have to pay back? No, I don't see that happening either. And the reason I don't see that happening is actually I don't think the Supreme Court of the United States has the authority to order Congress to pay or authorize payment of reparations. Not to foreign countries, because I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that suggests that the Supreme Court can alter the financial agreements and debts of the United States to other countries. That's all within the executive. That's all within the executive. And actually, good timing on this one. There is actually one other question. Sorry, just for kicks and giggles here. Asking if there does need to be any kind of special commission that governs whether the White House of the United States or the White House of the president can be constructed or deconstructed, i.e. if AOC becomes the president and wants to turn it into a coffee bar, can she do that? There's very little that says she can't. It is their house. The White House is not a technical national monument in and of itself. There has been legislation to do it before, but it's never really been necessary. I don't believe they do pull from the national park staff for some tour guiding, but that is from the general pool of Washington Monument National Park servicemen. So as to the question as to whether there's like a preservation society you have to honor, no, that's not a thing. No. So, I mean, if Trump wanted to demolish the White House, it's going to be golden. The golden house, it's going to be great. No, I think he could do it. It pissed a lot of people off. But no.
Money's really the only question, where you get the money and how you allocate it.
Yeah, there's a money and an allocation question. The real thing that I want to know is, are the donors to the White House project given tax write-offs on those donations? Because then there's a monetary exchange. Now, you're shaking your head no. I don't know how that's going to be outlined. There's also the exchange for services and how they are going to be listed. When donations are made to the Kennedy Center does in fact give them a kind of tax write-off. And then I believe it's changed based on if the Kennedy Center actually recognizes you. It's a really stupid bureaucratic law there, and a really weird rabbit hole to go down. There are very weird parts of really big bills where people have shoved things in since the early aughts that are just completely incongruent with earlier legislation and precedent. So we've talked about the most important thing. I do believe, Melody's saying, I do believe the Reagan Foundation is suing them. Suing Canada or suing the president in the White House? The Canada situation? I'm really interested I'll tell you what, I don't usually talk about this. I'm interested in getting a guest on who can explain to me how people suing others in other countries works. I want to know how that, no, seriously. I want to know how, because again, we talked about this with Candace yesterday, about Macron and his wife suing Candace in the United States. And now with the Reagan Foundation suing someone in Canada. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't understand how that's set up. When does the United States choose to honor or not honor civil or, I guess, criminal cases in some ways in other countries? I don't know how that works.
If any of you know an international law lawyer.
International lawyer. By the way, speaking of international law, just before we're done here, just for kicks, at the end of the show, if anyone's going to leave, producer Daniel hates it when I ramble on at the end of the show and people start to leave. Oh, well. The picture of the guy who was supposed to be the secret detective, the French detective at the Louvre, who was dressed in like the fedora and the fancy time, people thought, wow, man, even the French detectives still know how to dress, like Elliot Ness out there. That was just some random guy walking around the Louvre. It wasn't actually a detective. So when you get on Facebook, which I don't advise, and you see a picture of that French detective, yeah, that's just some dude. That's not actually a French detective. So there's a little international fun law fact that I do know. So with that, you guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on Monday. Same great time, same great place. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Take care.